Hey everyone, this is Corona once again, back with another video for Monster Hunter World Iceborne. So Capcom themselves have finally released the developer's diary that covers the newest Elder Dragon for Monster Hunter World Iceborne. Now in the developer's diary, they didn't really say the name of the Elder Dragon itself, but for the most part, I think at this point we all know it's called the Savage Eva, just because of the fact that Capcom themselves accidentally showed us the armor set name, which is called the Savage Eva armor set. So for the most part, I think we all know what the new Elder Dragon's name is, which is none other than the Savage Eva. Now when it comes to the developer's diary, it didn't really touch up on the particular Elder Dragon itself. It touched up on how it's an evolution or a mature form of the Xeno'jiiva itself, which for the most part is completely understandable at this point because that was kind of the main focus of the cutscene itself for the new Elder Dragon. However, when it comes to the true abilities of the Elder Dragon itself, Capcom only touched up on its ability to absorb bioenergy from the guiding lands itself. It didn't really touch up on anything more than that. So anything along the lines of further phases on the siege itself, that is something that we will need to see for ourselves come December 13th when the actual siege quest itself is available for us to actually do it. Now when it comes to the current mission that we have right now, the recon mission, Capcom did say that it doesn't really give us anything along the lines of materials that would allow us to craft the current armor set that they have in the game right now for the Savage Eva. So this means that the recon quest itself, as previously expected, is indeed just a sort of taster event quest, or rather a training quest of sorts to prepare us for the actual siege itself. Now again, the full siege experience may differ to that of the practice run. The practice run itself is just to give us an idea as to what we can expect. The full run itself will most likely be different in comparison to what we have in terms of the recon mission and the actual siege itself. So they may differ depending on how Capcom themselves approaches the full siege quest itself. Now moving on from the monster and the siege quest, let's talk about the weapons and armor. Now the armor set itself is the main focus when it comes to the visual aesthetic side of things, because the armor set itself, I'm sure some of you will have seen videos out there as of right now of some of the stats for the armor set, as there are some people out there who have managed to go ahead and see through what the skills are for the armor set itself. I'm not going to go through it myself because Capcom themselves did not exactly talk about the skills of the new armor set. They mostly talked about the bonus skill effect that it has in terms of aesthetics. So if you want to know more about the armor set skill effects, there are going to be some videos out there that I would advise looking into if you are more interested in the actual skill set themselves, as well as the overall skills that the armor has. Now when it comes to the visual side of things, the armor set does have a visual gimmick in that if you draw your weapon, the armor set itself has a transformation gimmick that changes the armor set's overall looks when you draw your weapon. This means that something along the lines of drawing your weapon during mid-hunt, or if you draw it during the view mode poses, the armor itself will actually transform. At least that's what I believe Capcom was getting at when they actually showed us the armor sets in the developer's diary. So that is an overall amazing kind of neat aesthetic change that they have done for the armor set itself when it comes to Monster Hunter World Iceborne's new Elder Dragon. So having a transformation gimmick on the actual armor itself would be a nice touch in terms of aesthetics, and I'm really hoping that in future this does become a layered armor set, because of the fact that if the visual aesthetics itself is something that Capcom was really using to sell this particular armor set, I think people will want to be able to customize their own unique armor set skills and effects to customize their own way of gameplay, and they would want to be able to use the visuals for just the aesthetic purposes. So I'm really hoping that Capcom themselves really look into bringing that new armor set as a layered armor, so we can go ahead and use that neat aesthetic effect that it has of transforming when we have the full armor set on. Now finally, let's go ahead and talk about the weapons. The weapons are very different than we expected. Now first and foremost, the main thing that we expected is that it's gonna be very similar to the Kulve siege in that we get a batch of weapons that we get from the actual siege itself, which was expected because this is a siege quest. However, the main difference is that first and foremost, we can only pick 3 weapons from the batch itself. Now, Capcom themselves have stated that it always guarantees at least 1 weapon type will be available for us that matches the current weapon we are using. So if you're using something along the lines of a greatsword or a longsword, you will have a greatsword or a longsword in the batch itself, which is going to be available for you. Whether you pick up those weapons or not will be dependent on yourself. Now alongside this, Capcom have also stated that the weapons based stats, so the main stats such as the raw damage and whatnot, they will all be the same across the board. The main difference between each of these weapons is the elemental capabilities as well as the status ailments that they have when they actually get presented to you. So certain weapons will have certain elements or status ailments that are going to be available when you actually finish the siege itself. So depending on what you pick in terms of overall status ailments or overall elemental capabilities, these are going to be the main RNG parts of the game's siege rotation. So each rotation you will get presented with the batch of weapons. They'll have different status ailments as well as different elemental capabilities. So overall, that's going to be the RNG aspect of it. Now, the other side of the weapon itself, which is the augmentation and upgrades, Capcom themselves have actually changed it a little bit more, because when it comes to the augmentation of this weapon, there is a lot of ways to customize this weapon. And by a lot of ways, I mean a lot of ways. There are actually augmentations that are not available for the crafted weapons, for the awakened weapons that come up on the siege. This means that if you augment the awakened weapon that we get from the siege itself, you can actually get skills that are not available for us on any other weapon that is in the game. In fact, they're only available as armor set effects. So armor set effects such as True Critical Element, Master's Touch, Critical Status, all of that kind of stuff will be available for us to use as augmentation with the awakened weapons. How this is going to change the meta, I'm not quite sure, because I don't really dabble deep into the meta itself personally. But for the most part, as you can see, the fact that armor set skills are going to be available as augmentations for these particular weapons could potentially shake up the meta much more massively than we think, because certain skills that we have to build our armor set for, such as Master's Touch, are now going to be available on the weapon themselves, so we can go ahead and change our armor set skills to match something completely different. So overall, this is going to be a huge game changer for those of you who actually like to dabble in the meta of the game itself. And overall, I'm really hoping that it does have some form of impact, just because it gives us more of a way to customize our characters rather than just focusing on certain aspects of the game itself. So for example, if you want to focus on the Master's Touch build, you don't have to necessarily focus on the armor set being Master's Touch bonus sets anymore. You can use other armor set bonuses, because the game itself is now giving you the ability to use Master's Touch as a weapon augmentation, and you can now mix that with other armor set skill effects in order to really optimize your character. So overall, it's a great way for Capcom themselves to really promote mixing and matching not only the weapons attack skills and augmentations, but also the armor set effects. And overall, I think that's going to be a great way for Capcom themselves to continue giving us more experience when it comes to the mix and matching and augmentation for Monster Hunter World Iceborne. But that is pretty much it for me for this video. As you can see, there's going to be a lot of stuff coming up with this particular siege event, which again will be coming on December 13th, and I cannot wait to get my hands on some of those new weapons as well as that armor set in order to get that sweet visual effect. But for the most part, I'm there for the hunt itself. I want to know more about the Savage Eva itself. I want to know what happens during the actual hunt. Does the Savage Eva change forms mid-siege quest or what? Because as we all know, the Savage Eva's overall appearance in the actual recon was completely different to what we got when it came to the teaser. So overall, I cannot wait to experience the full siege hunt itself. But that is pretty much it for me for this video. If you enjoyed these videos, please feel free to leave a like on the video itself, as well as subscribe to the channel, so you can go ahead and catch up on any future Monster Hunter content that I might be doing, or any other games that I might be playing in future. Until then, I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Onward and upward.